Traditional recruitment is dead. Don't bother doing contingency recruitment. Don't even think about hiring remote working employees. You should put all of your money into LinkedIn. The more likes you get on a post, that's going to feed straight into your revenue. And I don't even run a recruitment business, so you should pay attention to what I've got to say. Well, hopefully you can sense the sarcasm here. But the point here is, if you pay attention to what everybody is saying online about recruitment, then that's what you're going to be left with. You're going to be confused. Hire more recruiters, but don't hire recruiters. Do more cold calling, but don't actually do more cold calling. And then cold email is also dead, and LinkedIn is oversaturated, and emails don't work anymore. So when you pay attention to everything that there is online, it becomes confusing. Where do you go? Which one do you turn to? Which one is the priority? Like, how do you even decide? So as somebody who has literally experimented with every single one of these, we have AI and automation running in the front end and the back end of our business. We have remote working employees. We operate contingency, retained, RPO, temp. We haven't thrown any of them out the window. Because the reality is that even if you look at some of the fine details, they work. Every single one of these things work. The issue is not do they work or do they not work, the different tactics, strategies, and styles that are being presented online. The issue is in what order and what is the priority for what you need to be focused on working on now. I can tell you this from experience. I have seen people switch retained to contingency to retained and everything falls apart. I have seen people pay for expensive AI and automation tools and it shuts down their business. I've also seen people give up on recruitment because it's just too stressful. And I've also seen people ruin their business because they were trying to force a different pricing structure or a model in recruitment that their clients were not ready for or just didn't want, or they weren't able to portray it properly. So the reason why I'm sharing this video isn't because none of the things that you see online work. It's just in what order, and depending on what stage you're at in your journey for building or growing a recruitment business, then it's going to be different. Like if you're a 10 million a year recruitment agency, your next step is very different to the person who's literally just started, or somebody who's in an employed position and they're thinking about starting their own recruitment business. And you have to think of it, or certainly I do anyway, I think of it a bit like layering cake. Imagine you put jam, then cream, then sponge. It doesn't work. And if you think it does, then we can't be friends, basically. But the point is still remains the same. It's sponge, jam or cream, and then jam or cream again, then sponge, then icing or cream. Like, I don't want to go into the debate about how to layer a cake, but the point remains. In what order do you do these things? Because every single one of them yield an ROI. However, when you apply something to your business, you have to give something up. There's only so many limited working hours in a day. Okay, cool. Right now you're thinking about investing in LinkedIn personal brand. I've done this anyway. There's still an element of time that is taken for you to write out a good LinkedIn post. And that is time that could be allocated to onboarding a client or a candidate. So whatever it is that you consider exploring when it comes to the growth of your recruitment business, it's not even about which one, it's about in which order. Because if you do it in the wrong order, then everything collapses and falls apart. So this is one thing that nobody talks about, is when you look at one isolated component in a business. So let's just say you want to improve your candidate process or your candidate flow, or even your client onboarding process. When you look at one small part in isolation, you don't take into account what impact that has on the rest of the business. And that's why, even given my recruitment experience, I know that there's people who have achieved greater things in recruitment and some that have achieved a lower level of things. But nonetheless, there's a journey regardless of which route that you take. And the biggest mistake that I've made, and I've seen others make as well, is not being intentional with what they actually want from the business, how they want to run it, and what they want it to look like, and actually identifying what the key constraint or problem is in the business. Because the worst thing that could possibly happen is that you buy into a solution, whether that's a software or a tool or a strategy, whatever it is, and the problem that you're facing or the problem that tool or strategy solves is not the one that you're facing in the business. Because then the whole thing is just a waste of money. And I'll tell you what's even bigger waste of money is not taking the time to actually identify the problem and then not even taking action. Because if you've got a problem in the business, then you need to do something about it to try and fix it. And I can see it now where recruitment agencies will experiment with so many different things. Like there's a new tool, there's a new software. It's like, the heck, man, what are you doing? Are you just collecting software subscriptions? Is that the goal? Is your goal to become a product tester where you're just literally testing loads of different tools to try and figure out which one is the right one? Is it that you're overconfident? Maybe your egos hit you that actually I've built a massive recruitment company now and I know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm below 20% in terms of profit. Something needs to change. And I mentioned this in a previous video that recruitment is at its core a sales role. It's a high ticket B2B sales role, and it's driven by relationships, and that's the only way that it can work. because if you don't have a relationship with your clients and your candidates, they've got no reason to come back to you again. Yes, you might be a transactional recruiter where you can grab a CV off a job board and then get them into a placement, and you might even have a team that does this. I believe they will eventually die out because recruitment is focused around the relationship. And the person who has a relationship is going to have the upper hand for who secures the placement. So I'm talking about things in the recruitment business, different challenges that happen at different stages of the journey. There's certain challenges that you will encounter right at the very start and some that will be when you're in the millions. Either way, identifying what the specific constraint is always going to help you push the business forward. Always. It's just you might not know how to do that, and that's fine. But the likelihood of there being confusion in what you should do next comes from the amount of advice that is now available online. And it does get confusing. All the tools, all the different types of advice and so on. And this video isn't here for me to say, hey, you should book a call with me and I'll come and help you. And just for the record, I've got a separate video that I've linked below, and it basically talks through everything that I've done in my recruitment business. So if that's of interest and you want my help, you can book in a call. If you don't, totally fine. Stick around my YouTube, get to know me a little bit better, just in case you're new here. Back to the point. Whenever working on a given strategy or a goal, I'm always interested in an uplift of at least a double. So if what I'm about to do doesn't give me a double in terms of the growth of my recruitment business, whether that's in productivity, in time, or in profit, I'm not interested. And I always look at it from that perspective. So does my business give me peace and tranquility at home? Does my business actually pay me well enough so that I can support my family? So in case you're new here, I'm married, I've got 2 kids, one with special needs as well. And when I look at everything through that lens, it just makes me really question some of the decisions that I've made previously about what I've invested in when it comes to growing my business. And had I taken the hard-nosed approach of just completely flipping the business upside down and just following this new route that somebody else is telling me about, it would have been detrimental, because I've seen so many other people go down that rabbit hole, get lost, and then lose focus. Because there is a moment in time, an appropriate moment in time, to offer new or different services to your clients. And in most cases, they're just price points. Like recruitment is still recruitment. You're still helping people secure jobs and you're helping the clients deliver their projects on time. That's recruitment. How you do that, completely down to you. So there is no new model of recruitment. It's the way that you price your services. And you have to understand and see the fact that some people just want coffee beans for making their own coffee. Some people want it out of a machine or a filter of some kind, and some people want it handmade from a barista who is going to give it to them in a ceramic cup. People just have different preferences. So when you're looking at different business models, you shouldn't be looking at how many different revenue streams can we collect from one particular client at one particular time. Yes, that's a conversation to have at a slightly later date. However, what's the one thing that you're good at? What's the one thing that you focus in on? And what's the one thing that you can absolutely capitalize on? And what's the one thing that your clients actually want? Give your clients what they actually want. Like, why force a completely different pricing strategy or a solution or a model when your clients don't want? That's going to damage your entire business. So I thought I'd make this video because of a few things. One is the confusion that exists online. And number 2 is because this is literally the experiences and challenges that I've personally had through growing my recruitment business. And I don't have like 17 other different projects that I'm working on. And I still actually run the recruitment business today as well. I made this point in another video that there's some people out there giving advice on recruitment and they've never run a recruitment business. Or even though they tell you to stay close to the money, they're closer to retirement than they are to their placement. So if you are feeling lost or confused, it's okay. The only thing that you need to do is think about your priorities. What's the biggest thing that you have a challenge with right now? Number 1, you might even find an explainer for it on my YouTube channel, because that's all I've done here on YouTube. And number 2 is be clear on your intention. If you don't have the goal of making 10 million a year and having a massive team, that's fine. Nobody cares. Like, everybody will crack on with their life as normal if you don't have that goal. You have to be focused on what will make you happy and what will make you content, because the worst thing that you could possibly do is build a business that you actually hate. And I give this example to some of the people that I work with, and that is that certainly in the earlier stages of growth in your business, there's a lot of pain that you've got to go through, like finding your niche and then contacting clients and waiting until the first client says yes, and then contacting candidates and then making the placement. Like, the first placement is an absolute nightmare. Like, it takes the longest compared to any other placement that you can possibly make, because that's the first time you're doing it at the end of the day. But now, if you're somebody who is, say, building a house, and while you're building the house, it's raining and the weather's not great, you just complain about how bad the weather is and how horrible this experience is, then by the time your house is built, even though the house is really nice, you're just not going to like it, because you're just going to remember the pain that it put you through. So you have to ask yourself the question, like, whatever you're working on, what's the focus point? What are you working towards? What's the goal? What's the end point? And there has to be an end point, because if you don't have a defined end point, then you can't possibly have a clear strategy on what you're actually working on or what your focus actually is. So just for a moment, don't do anything. Like, just take a moment, sit down with a notepad and write down all of your thoughts and feelings. And if that does not make you happy or content, then you're obviously doing something. And if you want to narrow it down just to a few things, this is certainly what I pay attention to as well. Because number one is profit. Number two is the time that it takes out of your day. And number three is the peace that you have day to day. This is you as a recruiter, as a business owner, as a team manager, as a team leader, like whatever situation, circumstance you're in with your business, stage, growth, whatever, not even starting, whatever it is. Think through everything with those three lenses. And if you think through everything with those three lenses, then whatever decision you make, you will be happy with it. Just don't do what I did, which is I was drawn by shiny object syndrome, and I thought what I was doing was wrong because that's what they told me online. And I invested. Some were good, some were not so good. But most importantly, I couldn't implement anything that had at least some sort of consequence on another component or part of the business. So whatever you decide to do, take a holistic approach. Look at it from those three lenses that I've described. Consider the impact that it would have on the business. Then make your decision. And once you've decided, block out all the noise, focus, go all in. Because the worst thing that you can be doing is second guessing your decision. So that's it for this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And just in case you're new here, just go through all my YouTube videos. I share a lot of good advice for recruiters, recruitment agency owners, founders, anything to do with recruitment. You'll love my channel. See you guys in the next video.